Imagine this. It's a regular winter morning in Northeast Ohio, just before 9 a.m. You're just starting your day, maybe on your second cup of coffee, when out of nowhere, boom, a massive sound, an explosion rattles your windows and literally shakes your house. So, what on earth was that? Let's get into it.
And that was the question on everyone's mind, including the local news anchors. Newsrooms, police departments, their phones were ringing off the hook. The confusion was just instant and everywhere because people heard it and they felt it, but nobody saw a thing.
Yeah, this was no distant rumble. For so many people, it was a physical jolt. I mean, this quote from a local resident really hits home, right? People literally thought something had just smashed into their homes or their office buildings. Okay, so to really understand what happened, we first have to get a sense of the sheer scale of this thing. This wasn't just one town. This was a phenomenon that rippled across a huge chunk of the state. Just look at how widespread this was. We're talking reports flooding in from Kingsville, right over by the Pennsylvania line, all the way down to Akron. That's a huge area covering multiple counties. And get this, an expert from the National Weather Association said even his own windows were rattling in Avon Lake. And thanks to some pretty sensitive seismic sensors, we know the exact moment it all went down, 8:59 and 50 seconds in the morning. So with a huge mystery like this, theories started flying around almost immediately. The authorities had to work fast, ruling out the obvious stuff on the ground to figure out what was going on up in the sky. You know, the first logical suspect for a lot of folks was some kind of man-made explosion. In fact, one of the experts later admitted his first thought was a nearby power plant that had had problems before. It sounded just like that kind of industrial blast. But nope, that theory was pretty quickly ruled out. So after checking off all the earthly possibilities, it wasn't military jets, it wasn't a weird thunderstorm, the National Weather Association zeroed in on the most likely culprit, a meteor. Yep, a rock from space, screaming into our atmosphere at unbelievable speed, is what created that massive boom. But wait a minute, how can a rock, maybe no bigger than your fist, cause a disturbance so massive it shakes entire counties? Well, it all comes down to the absolutely incredible physics of what happens when something enters our atmosphere that fast. Let's break it down. The sound everybody heard wasn't really an explosion in the way we usually think of it. It was a sonic boom. The best way to picture it is to think of a speedboat creating a wake in the water. When an object blasts through the air faster than sound itself, the air molecules literally can't get out of the way fast enough. They pile up, creating this massive shock wave of compressed air. And when that wave reaches us on the ground, boom. So you're probably thinking, okay, but I see shooting stars all the time, and they're silent. And you're totally right. Your typical shooting star is a beautiful, silent light show because it burns up way, way high in the atmosphere. This meteor, though, it was different. Even though it might have been pretty small, it traveled much, much lower before it broke apart. And that closeness, that's the key. That's what turned a silent flicker into a powerful sonic boom we could actually hear and feel. All right, let's just run through the sequence of events here. First, the meteor slams into our atmosphere at blistering speed. Second, it instantly shatters the sound barrier. Third, that impact creates that enormous shockwave we've been talking about. And finally, that wave of energy travels all the way down to the surface, rattling windows from Kingsville to Akron. But you know, the story doesn't end with the boom. Once the science was pretty much settled, a totally new and exciting question popped up. If this meteor made it that low, did a piece of it actually survive the trip and hit the ground? Finding a piece of it, which is called a meteorite once it's on the ground, well, it isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. It turns out there have been 13 confirmed meteorite falls discovered in Ohio's history. So there was a very real possibility that number 14 was now sitting out there somewhere, in a field or a forest, just waiting to be found. And this is where it gets really fun. The expert, Jay Reynolds, he basically kicked off a treasure hunt. He points out that meteorites can be pretty valuable, and he even offered to personally come out and verify anything people found. All of a sudden, the Great Ohio Boom had officially sparked a statewide meteorite hunt. So this brings us to the bigger picture, because while this was a shocking, once-in-a-lifetime event for Northeast Ohio, it's also a valuable reminder of our planet's place in a very, very active cosmos. And here's the crucial point. What Ohio experienced isn't some huge anomaly for the planet as a whole. As the expert said, this kind of thing happens every single day, somewhere on Earth. Our atmosphere is constantly getting bombarded by cosmic junk. Most of it just burns up completely unnoticed. But every so often, one makes its presence known in a big way, just like this one did. It's a really humbling thought, isn't it? A completely ordinary morning can be interrupted by a little reminder from millions of miles away. It makes you look up at the sky a little differently, which kind of leaves us with one final question. The next one could happen anywhere, at any time. So if a piece of the cosmos landed in your backyard, what would you do?